¿A dónde está papi? ¿A dónde está papi? ¿A dónde está papi?
Welcome to the Monday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Monday. Yes, we will be talking about what's going on with this here. Derry Bennett, Quad Bennett, indeed Trump immunity. We're going to be talking about that. Cosmic Seeking Heat, how's it going? Welcome. General Strike, welcome. Michael Hassler. All right. Thank you all for joining. There is definitely lots to talk about, folks. Lots to talk about. Before I get started, the usual disclaimers. If you want to continue to support the channel, there are many different ways of doing so. Continue to like the stream. Follow us here on Twitch. Join the Discord, folks. Join the Discord. And consider checking out the merch store. How goes it? It goes. It goes. Man, today's gonna be quite the doozy, huh? America is in his own personal health. Personal hell. A decline since marriage equality. Man. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad. Folks, given the upcoming July 4th, there is going to be a since I completely spaced out on the movie event this weekend, I'm opting for putting something like Don't Look Up, which I think is appropriate given the circumstances. If you haven't watched the movie Don't Look Up, it makes absolute perfect sense now more than ever. So I'm considering throwing that up in July 4th in lieu of the stream. Wednesday stream might be a short stream, and yeah. Mouse Sander, welcome. You are now living in a monarchy. Essentially. So, we'll talk about it. Let's do it. With Will the Kid? No, we're not watching Independence Day. Not that movie. I'm sorry too. I think Joe Biden should have Trump arrested for treason and thrown in jail right away under presidential immunity. Yeah, I mean, but like Joe Biden's not going to do that. Joe Biden doesn't have a spine. Joe Biden doesn't have the spine to confront the disastrous Supreme Court decisions. And by the way, like just that wasn't even that wasn't the only bad decision, by the way. Man, these last string of Supreme Court decisions have been pretty freaking bad. I should also have I don't know who Coma is. I'm thinking somebody else. Jim Jordan arrested and thrown in jail now as well. He's not going to do it. Joe Biden doesn't have a spine. Joe Biden is a coward. He does not have a spine. He's not going to do any of that.
So let's talk about some MAGA chuds, specifically some Christian nationalist MAGA chuds, because Josh Hawley...
But his presidential action to save America. Yeah, but he doesn't care. He's not... Joe Biden is not with us. Okay? if you catch my drift. Joe Biden is not he's not there.
He's a jack of all trades, master of none. You know, he wants you to think that he cares deeply about masculinity. I think that he wrote a book about masculinity, you know, which is fine. Not really someone I think of when I think of masculinity. You know, I'm getting low T vibes from him, to be honest. You know, and I'm preaching to the choir. I don't think people associate me with masculinity, but I'm self-aware, right? I'm not going to write a book on masculinity.
Now a president can never be impeached. No. You can still impeach a president. To my understanding, that's not going to affect the impeachment process. Because that has nothing to do with the impeachment process is not a criminal procedure or a civil procedure. It's just like it's just within the Constitution, like within the House and Senate. They handle that. Joe Biden compared in himself right now. Yeah, we can ask President Joe Biden.
Now he's going for the Christian nationalist LARP. And he's basically saying,
"Oh,
look,
Joe Biden can pardon himself." Yeah, but he can't pardon himself if he's impeached, right? Like that's not how that works. In a situation where like a president gets impeached, you can't pardon yourself. We don't necessarily know if you can even. We haven't solved that legal gray area of whether or not a president can pardon themselves, like actually for a federal crime. But yeah, if he gets impeached, there's no, like, if he gets impeached, he would have to go to the Senate. If anyone tries to impeach him, he can have them arrested and thrown in jail too. Right? I mean, yeah, the president can do basically anything he wants right now. I'm just saying he's not going to because he can't. He's a coward. He's not going to do any of that. There's no point in entertaining these what if scenarios because he's not capable of doing this.
We need a theocracy. Now I'm oversimplifying his words here, but you know, let's watch. You'll see for yourself.
Religion divides this country. The left says it constantly. Have you heard it? All the time. They're like, "Oh, religion, it's so divisive."
It is.
Religion divides America.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you today.
It does. Yes.
Religion doesn't divide America. Religion unites America. We are a religious people. I'll tell you what divides America. What divides America
is when you use your religion to suppress marginalized groups and impose your religiosity on all of us. That's what divides America, right? Is that what it
unites? No, it definitely divides. Like, there's no, it's bad.
Gonna say
is the left's attempt to destroy religion. That's what divides America.
That's what it is. Okay, that makes sense, right? Listen, I'm an anti-theist. I think that religion is inherently bad because, you know, there's been wars waged over religion, you know. It gets you to suspend facts for faith, which I think is bad. Having said that, though, I have no problem.
That's pretty freaking dangerous to do, right? Like, basically, the whole premise relies on the idea of faith, and that basically asks you to surrender the ability to have critical thinking, right? Because you're just gonna have to, like, trust me, bro. What? It destroys the concept of critical thinking. Anti-theists gotta remember that term.
With people practicing religion and being religious, and I would defend somebody's right to be religious and subscribe to a religion so long as they're not hurting anyone else. The problem is Christian nationalists want to impose their religion on all of us. But when we say no, they respond by saying, "Oh, you must want to destroy religion." Well, no, I don't want your religion being shoved down my fucking throat. It's okay to have a religion, but I don't need to be part of your religion. I don't want to be forced and compelled to subscribe to your religious dogma.
Right. Like, just to be very clear, like that, these evangelical zealots or whatever, you follow your religion. That's dictating what you're supposed to do. That is not dictating what everybody else is about.
That's where we draw the fucking line. But they're disingenuous, and
also, like, it has no place in government, because, like, government is supposed to be secular. Because it is for everybody, and not everybody is religious. Not everybody subscribes to that particular religion. So government has to be secular. Has to.
refuse to admit that. And they'll say things like religious freedom, but they don't mean religious freedom because they would never support religious freedom for Muslims. Anyone who is a Muslim in the United States, they accuse of wanting Sharia law. So they're not saying religious freedom for, Mormons or Muslims or even certain kind of Christians.
Nah, religion is bad. Otherwise, we get the situation happening in Gaza now. Yeah, religion is bad. I don't want any part of it. Keep it to yourself.
Catholics, there's a divide there. They're saying we want religious freedom for us, for the evangelicals. Specifically, we want the freedom to impose our religion on you. That's freedom to us. No, fuck you.
Right, exactly. That when they talk about like freedom of religion, that's what they literally mean. They want the freedom to impose on you. That's what they mean. Because there is no there is nothing preventing them from exercising their religion, okay? Their freedom of religion is not under attack in any way, shape, or form, okay? They can practice their religion however they like, as long as it's not hurting anybody, and as long as they're not imposing that on anybody else. So it's cry bullying. They claim to be the constant victims when they're not. They're the victimizers.
You're not going to do that. I'm not going to allow you to do that. I don't want to be part of your religion. You can have your own religion. You can love your religion. I don't want to be part of your fucking religion. I'm not part of your little book club. So don't push that shit on me, okay?
Yeah, and worst of all, like, don't make that into law where everybody else has to be a part of this nonsense, right? Like, if you want to live in your own alternative reality and your own fairy tale, then go do that by yourself, away from people, okay? We don't need that shit.
Okay?
Go. What is dividing America is their attempt to erase our heritage, to erase the foundation that this country has in, yes, the Bible.
Nope.
This is the greatest country in
That's
the
not
history of the
true.
world.
That's not true.
Nope.
That's just history revisionism. Like, the founders, they were deists at most, This wasn't a Christian country.
Right, this was never a Christian country. This is the whole premise supposedly was freedom of religion, right? Like, that's why they made a whole big deal about the separation of church and state, right?
Yes, it has a lot of Christians, majority Christians, but it's not a Christian country. Constitutionally, it is secular. And that's a fact that they pretend doesn't exist, but it's an inescapable fact. We're not a Christian country. We're a secular country. Our Constitution is secular. Read the First Amendment, dummy.
Because we are a country founded on the principles of the Bible.
Wrong.
That's the truth. And most Americans know it. They know it to be true.
No.
They know it to be true. Who's dividing America is the radical left. And that's why I say to you, we don't need less Christian influence in our society.
Man, so, yeah. What is the famous saying? Every accusation is just a confession. Yeah.
We don't need less Christian witness in our society. We need more.
No.
In every
I love how, this is a side point, it's the radical left. They're the ones who's dividing America.
But how come all the money says in God we trust? Did you ever, like, take 5 seconds to Google that? Because like instead of just like making the statement, why don't you Google it? Let me know what you find.
What does the radical left stand for exactly? I think that I would be somebody who he would call a radical leftist. I want healthcare for every single person, free at the point of service. That includes Republicans. I don't think they should be spending hundreds of dollars every single month for healthcare. I think that every single person should be paid a living wage, more than a living wage, have guarantees as a worker, pay time off, paternity, maternity leave. I think that everybody should be free to live their own lives. I believe in freedom fundamentally, freedom for trans people, freedom for non-binary people, LGBTQ plus people, but also freedom for people I disagree with, so long as they're not hurting anybody. Religious freedom, I believe in freedom. But yet it's the left who's dividing everybody. Yeah. We're dividing everybody as you literally call for more religiosity as a politician. Fuck out of here. And to be clear, I don't even think he believes what he's saying. Like, this man is probably not even religious. He probably couldn't cite a single Bible verse. He's probably like Trump. I don't know, though. But, he's saying this because this is what the Republican Party's base wants to hear. And he's at the Faith and Freedom Conference, which, he knows the crowd he's supposed to be speaking to.
Part of government, in every part of society. You know what we ought to do? We ought to take the pride flag out of schools and put the Bible back in.
And they're doing it, by the way. And they're doing it. They're doing it.
You know what? We ought to take the trans flag down from all of our federal buildings, and over every federal building in America write the words, "In God we trust." In God we trust. Amen?
Amen, brother. In God we trust wasn't added to the Pledge of Allegiance until the 1950s. And I love how he's like, no. We need the Bible in the schools. Hey, dipshit, why can't we have the Bible in schools?
Yeah, why should one religion be held above all others in public school? Exactly. We should, however, be supporting equal rights for all. Exactly. What does that mean? Oh, wait, I just realized this is a restricted message. Yeah, no, I'm good. Fuck off. There we go.
Precisely. Do you remember why? It's the First Amendment. I know that you know this, but you're pretending like you don't know that the First Amendment is a thing. But, I don't care if you're ignorant.
Right, like they pretend to care about the First Amendment, talking about like free speech and whatnot. But it's very clear what's going on here.
Or disingenuous. You're openly calling for the Constitution to be violated. Bringing the Bibles in schools would be a violation of the First Amendment. I mean, how do you think that he would react if, we brought the Torah in schools? Or the Quran? What if we brought other religious texts in schools? Right? Scientology even, hell. You're going to allow one, why not the others? He wouldn't like that, right?
Right, you would have to allow all of them or none of them, right? Essentially, that's what you would be left in. You would have to allow all religions or no religions, and the most simplistic, least controversial answer would be no religion, just none of it. Just none of it. Or rather, the least, not controversial, least complicated answer. The least complicated answer would be no religion. There is literally no reason why one religion needs to be taught in school forcefully.
Right? Because, again, this isn't about religious liberty. It's about Christian nationalism and
Correct.
imposing their theocratic views on all of us. And more,
Correct, because like there's no infringement on their ability to practice their religion. That's not a thing that's happening.
this is what they want. You know, this is kind of a microcosm of a bigger problem right now where Republicans are getting emboldened because of the far-right Supreme Court, and they think they can get away with anything. So
They can.
you all probably heard about this, but, you know, Louisiana wants the 10 Commandments in public schools. Will the Supreme Court let it?
Probably.
I mean, honestly, at this point, I don't know. You have so many far-right...
By the way, I didn't watch the video. I didn't watch this video, okay? I didn't watch this video. I studied a case when I was doing pre-law about a nativity scene in a park. Judge ruled that everyone had the right to put a holiday display up, including Satanists. Right, exactly. Either everybody has the ability to display or to practice or to put their, you know, religion in a public space, or nobody does. And the simplistic answer, especially when it comes to education, is that it shouldn't be. There should be no religion allowed in school, period, full stop, end of story.
radicals on the Supreme Court, Christians like Amy Coney Barrett, Alito, Clarence Thomas. So it's not a matter of like, oh, will the Constitution permit it or not? I think that's irrelevant largely when it comes to these Supreme Court justices. Like, that might sound cynical, but they're very clearly not relying on the Constitution or even precedent to, you know, come to these conclusions. So, you know, will they allow it? I don't know, probably. I mean, it's a bunch of crazy fascists, Christian nationalist evangelicals in robes. Like, they're not deities. They're not like, they don't have some sort of untapped wisdom that none of us are privy to. Like, they're just regular ass people who are kind of crazy. Or not kind of crazy. They're pretty fucking crazy, right? Especially Alito.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's probably the crazy. Well, it's a tie between him and Clarence Thomas. But, I mean, we're dealing with crazy fucking people here. Let's read a little bit from the story.
We, the people of the United States.
We've moved so far away from the Constitution that, in many ways...
So, last week, Louisiana enacted legislation requiring every public school in the state to display a specific version of the 10 Commandments in each classroom. I can't wait to be sued, Republican Governor Jeff Landry proclaimed a few days before signing the new law, erasing any doubt that the purpose of this legislation is to coax the Supreme Court into legalizing religious displays in government-run classrooms. Yeah. So that's what this is about. He's doing it now because, obviously, now's the time. You know, you've got...
Right, and it worked for Roe, right? The tactic was successful with Roe. It took a while, but eventually it worked. So why not keep doing it? Y'all Qaeda, exactly. Y'all Qaeda.
The fascist Supreme Court that you wanted, who are willing to bring about fascism and impose it on all of us. So, you know, they're daring the ACLU and civil rights and civil liberties organizations to sue them because if they appeal all the way to the Supreme Court, they get a pretty good chance of seeing a dub. So that's the problem. We're in this predicament where we're seeing a Lochner type era, right? For those who don't know, the Lochner era, they were another Roe court during the New Deal era, and they were just striking down New Deal after New Deal, reforms that were being passed, and it wasn't until FDR threatened to pack the court that they stopped. Now, that was part of it, but also the makeup of the court changed as well, just to be honest. But the problem here is that the makeup of this court isn't going to change anytime soon, unless it's for the worse, because I can't really anticipate, you know, well, I don't know. If Biden wins another 4 years, Clarence Thomas is old, so he could die. But then that's still, you know, 5-4 majority.
Right, it's 5-4 majority, and even if, like, it can only get worse. Does that make sense? It can only get worse.
So it's hard to imagine things changing that quickly. Like, I'd be surprised if the makeup of the court changed in our lifetime, because conservatives know you've got to protect that fucking court, because that court is key to fulfilling their fascist fantasy. So, I don't know, but the question here, will they get away with it, or will he get away with it? The answer is unclear. Probably, though, right? And the court's current First Amendment precedents cut strongly against Louisiana's law, but the court's GOP-appointed majority has also spent the last several years rolling back precedents separating church and state. That's the problem, right? I hope they're going to get to it. Like, there was the case involving the coach who wanted to do prayers at games.
Right.
That's A-okay. You can do that because, no more separation of church and state anymore, So there's a very real risk that they will allow public schools to promote Christianity. And it's not just about, like, the 10 Commandments in school classrooms. What comes after that? I mean, what else will they allow? You start with, this is what they allow in classrooms, and then, this is what they mandate in classrooms. Like, this is genuinely dangerous.
Right. Like, literally, the state of Oklahoma is requiring the Bible to be part of the curriculum. Should that law go through unchallenged?
Because it actually does put us on a pathway to theocracy, and that's what the people on this court believe in. So that's what's really terrifying. The court has historically held that the public schools have an unusually high obligation not to promote religious viewpoints, in large part because the young people educated in those schools are unusually vulnerable to coercion. Allowing this law to stand would mean taking a sledgehammer to the wall separating church and state. Exactly. And look, what do we call this? Young people are unusually vulnerable to coercion? There's a word for it. Insmoctrination? What's the word that Republicans always use? Oh, right. Indoctrination.
Mm-hmm.
So they say that LGBTQ people want to indoctrinate young people, when really that's projection,
Every accusation is just a confession, folks. I think Biden should order Trump security detail to step down and leave him unprotected. I know emotions are running high, but let's be sure to keep things TOS friendly. Yeah, seriously.
They're the ones who want to indoctrinate people.
Like, everywhere.
Correct. Hey, Democrats, what are you planning to do about this? Can we get an answer? What are we going to get as a response?
No, Taraji. Now, you know I wouldn't do that, especially not to a fellow bison. The real, ain't you? You know. So what's on your mind?
Oh, Madam VP Harris, I'm worried about the election. Women's reproductive rights are on the line. Our Supreme Court is on the line. Our basic freedoms are being tested, Madam VP. I know you've been traveling across the country. What are you hearing?
Yeah, girl, I'm out here in these streets. And let me tell you, you're right, Taraji. There is so much at stake in this moment. The majority of us believe in freedom and equality. But these extremists, as they say, they're not like us.
They not.
There's a
Oh, man, I'm feeling so much better already.
full-on attack on our fundamental freedoms. The freedom to vote. Yep. The freedom to love who you love. The freedom to be safe from gun violence. The freedom for a woman to make decisions about her own body, not having her government tell her what to do. No, Taraji.
Paid for by Biden Harris. Man, I feel so much better. I feel so confident, folks. Oh, man. When I want to hear what regular people think, I know to call the vice president. Our genuine reactions weren't real, but the scripted reaction a few days later is real. I can't even listen to her when she's on my headphones. Walk back on the fear they all spouted genuinely on Friday. Yep. This vice president is a joke. Man, that's an understatement. Yeah, so, thanks, guys. I feel really confident about the future. Man,
He couldn't finish a thought. He couldn't land an answer. And his closing thoughts were even botched. I mean,
So for the folks of you that, for those of you, who, were spared and did the correct thing and not watch, the debate, it was pretty freaking bad. It was pretty bad. It was so bad that, like, literally, like, 5 seconds after the debate, the pundits were already like, nope. Calls for stepping down were, calls, for Biden to step down were coming out, immediately. Yeah, is a folk of you. Or is that a different track? Also, the Not Like Us referencing Kendrick's Drake diss track was something. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's what it is. Kendrick Lamar. Pretty sure you're right. Not Like Us. Yeah, you're right.
come on. For me, Joe Biden is still the man for this moment.
Oh, man. I love it. I love it. Oh, man. I love it. Some of the CNN reporters were crying. Yeah, now, Monday, couple days later, be careful what you wish for. Who would you replace Biden with? Literally anybody else. I don't care. Joe needs to go. Literally any other generic Democratic person would be miles ahead of Joe Biden. Like right now, man, the copium that's being injected is amazing.
Following the debate on Thursday night, there was a lot of discussion about the possibility of replacing Joe Biden, or at least the discussion from people that would not normally have that discussion.
I reckon Gavin Newsom for president and Gretchen Whitmer for vice. I don't know. It's wishful thinking because Joe's not going to step down. And I don't know if the Democratic Party has the spine to do what is necessary. But anyways.
Including commentators on MSNBC, CNN, Democratic operatives, even a Democratic surrogate in Claire McCaskill, discussing the possibility that maybe Joe Biden is not ready for this. Now, it's been a few days. And as I predicted in that video, we have seen sort of the allowing this to blow over.
Yeah, which is absurd, which is not good. That's not good. That is a losing strategy. To try to pretend like the conversations that happened like just a couple of days ago didn't happen and we're now just going to pretend like everything's good. Come on. Come on. You know, we could still like archive the news articles these people came out with, right? Like we can just look this up and what the conversations were just a few days ago.
At least that has become very clear, especially when it applies to, say, Morning Joe, that was saying something very different on Friday morning compared to what they're saying on Monday morning. So there's a lot of reaction I want to get to in this video. So including the reaction from Joe Biden's family, a new Joe Biden campaign ad that addresses some of these issues. And let's start with
like what how can we possibly be addressing this issue, right? Like what is the argument here? I'm genuinely curious. Like what is the argument here?
Trump's stupid post. This was, I believe, Friday morning, June 29th. So this is like, of course, this is what Trump is known for doing.
As I walked off stage on Thursday night, at the end of the highly anticipated debate, anchors and political reporters all screamed that I had the greatest debate performance in a long and storied history of presidential debates. I don't know who these anchors and political reporters are screaming that he had an amazing debate performance. But just to be very clear, just because Biden's underperformance and crashing out does not like absolve Trump's performance at the debate. Donald Trump went very soft on Biden. No, he just wasn't like, he was just saying a bunch of nonsense. Like Trump like basically lied like 95% of the debate, and then like couldn't stay on topic on any of the topics. The only thing he kept rambling on about is immigration, with false with just like false narratives. That's what Trump was doing. Just gish galloping the entire debate about immigration. Trump didn't do well. He was just overshadowed by Biden being so awful. Exactly. It's exactly what I'm saying. Yes. What Trump should have done is he should have kept pointing out and stressing out Biden over the fact that Biden is suffering from dementia. Yeah, but he's also not there cognitively, so like, yeah. But I don't care. I want Trump to do bad. Just to be very clear, I don't care for Trump. I want him to lose. Does that make sense?
Doing is somehow making this about himself and playing victim. As I walked off the stage on Thursday night at the end of the highly anticipated debate, I don't know why that's in quotes, anchors, political reporters, and all screamed that I had the greatest debate performance in the long and storied history of presidential debates. Literally, nobody said that.
Yeah.
They all said effectively, Trump was fantastic. This theme was universal, even at CNN and
yeah, I don't know like what exactly Trump must be delusional. He must be like literally living in some kind of like fantasy world that he's made up for himself. But yeah, like literally nobody was saying this.
MSDNC, which also did not happen. No one. Okay, let's move on. But Friday evening, it was all about the poor performance of Crooked Joe and not so much about how well I did. Oh well, that's the way it is. But importantly, the result is the same. Donald Trump is perturbed that there wasn't more discussion about his debate performance. He should be happy there wasn't, because Trump didn't do well either. He lied the entire time. What discussion there was about how much he lied. The reason why Trump was overshadowed is because you could say, to Trump's credit, he sort of allowed Biden to just do what he did. I think if Trump had gone in and really hammered Joe and played the bully, I don't think it would have helped him. I think it may have taken the attention away from how poorly Joe Biden did and put more attention on how much of a bully. And
it's a contest between two demented racists on who can refuse to retire the hardest.
And outlandish Donald Trump was. But because Donald Trump was more subdued, kind of stayed out of it, didn't really interject too much or at all, the discussion was more about how poor Joe Biden was. And also...
yeah, and also he couldn't do that, right? Like they specifically had the mics cut off. If you just listen to the debate with the sound, Joe Biden mostly told the truth, but Trump told all lies. There were some instances where Joe Biden did not tell the truth. There was definitely some. I'm not saying that he lied about everything. Trump certainly did. Trump was just lie after lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. But to say that, like, yeah, I guess I'll say Joe Biden did not say everything truthfully, I should say.
How often Donald Trump lied. Now, this is where this piece in Axios I find to be very interesting.
I never thought that the shirt I wore to school one spring morning would lead to a federal lawsuit, but the reaction from the adults running my school...
Stop it.
The two Joe Bidens, the night America saw the other one. So they go on to discuss Biden's miscues and limitations are more familiar inside the White House. The time of day is important as to which of the two Bidens will appear.
Yeah, and like that's not acceptable. What do you mean? Which of the two Bidens are going to appear? Are we going to have incoherent Joe, or are we going to have like normal Joe Biden? Like that's not screaming confidence, right? Like that can't be a thing where you're going to have to flip a coin or have a time of day where you're gonna have two different Biden. Like that's not acceptable.
From 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Biden is deeply engaged, and many of his public events in front of cameras are held within those hours. Outside of that time range, or while traveling abroad, Biden is more likely to have verbal miscues and become fatigued, aides told Axios. So essentially, Joe Biden is an elderly man. Now, this is a serious problem when it comes to campaigning. I want to be very clear here because there is a lot of, confusion from some people who are offended that we can see with our eyes and hear with our ears and saw how terrible Joe Biden was on Thursday. People saying, oh, but you don't want Trump. The issue isn't about the job as president.
Thank goodness he's allegedly fined for 6 hours a day. Fortunately, being president is a part-time job. So how many times did Trump lie? He lied a lot, yes. Like, he lied a lot, like almost the entire time. Look at how many lies there were in the debate. It's quite insane from both Trump and Biden.
The issue is about, can Joe Biden win an election when he can't properly campaign? When you see these two side by side on a debate stage, and even though they're only a few years apart in age, one...
Yeah, like, again, I don't care. I know Trump is... I know who Trump is, right? I'm not going to vote for Trump. I'm not advocating for Trump. I don't care. I hope he crashes and burns. I hope his campaign crashes and burns. The point being is that the supposed candidate on the Democratic side has no idea what's going on right now. And when Trump wasn't lying, he was diverting, changing the subject. And yeah, I know that. But we're not talking about Trump. I know he's terrible. Like, that's not the problem. We already know that.
You could argue, I would argue, at least in that debate, one appeared 20 years younger than the other one. That is a problem when it comes to campaigning. That doesn't mean I think Trump is more dependable or would do a better job. Of course not. And also, it's important to note, the president is one person. When you elect a president, you are electing their staffers, their cabinet, that party. That is who does most of the work. So the issue here isn't about Joe Biden or Trump. It's really about, can Joe Biden win an election when he is campaigning or acting this way in front of cameras?
Right. And like, you can't be like, oh, but he's lucid over here, you know, look at his speech the day after, you know. No, man, that's not it. It's kind of wild how Barack Obama, George Bush, and Bill Clinton are all younger than both Trump and Biden. Man, phenomenal times we live in. Phenomenal times. I saw Joe's rally on Friday and he was brilliant. Right, but we can't have that. We can't have one day Biden can't seem to complete thoughts, and the other day being completely like normal, right? Does that make sense? We can't have one day we'll have Biden like he was Friday, and then we can't have one day where Biden's behaving like he did on Thursday, the debate. Like, that's not acceptable. Right, it's sundowning hard. And it can't also be based on the time of the speech. Exactly, Wolfglen. It can't also be based on the time of day, right? Which Biden will see. Like, that's not acceptable. Just schedule everything before the early bird special. Why aren't you pushing for Biden to drop out in favor of a different Democrat? I am. I'm literally saying Joe needs to go. That's exactly my current position. Joe Biden, literally anybody, any general Dem should step in and would be better than Joe Biden right now. Vampire president only the first half of the day, right? Without anyone who it doesn't matter. Anybody, pick anybody. Put anybody from the Democratic ticket. Anybody, pick a person, literally pick a name from the hat. They will literally do better in the election as it stands right now than Biden. How about Biden's dog? No, a Democrat. Anybody who, like, pick a Democrat from the roster. It doesn't matter. Anybody but Sanders, right? That's true. Yeah.
To election day. That is the problem. If it were up to me, I would vote for a glass of water over Donald Trump. And that's more because of what the threat that Trump and Republicans pose compared to Democrats. Now, thankfully, for all of our sanity, there were people, Democrats, sitting Democrats, that were willing to discuss this. So this is with Ali Velshi on MSNBC. Here is Jamie Raskin.
But obviously, there was a big problem with Joe Biden's debate performance. And there's also just a tremendous reservoir of affection and love for Joe Biden in our party. And so this makes it a difficult situation.
Hey, Bond, how's it going? Hope you're all well. Same. Isn't Sanders older than Biden? Yeah, but Sanders is all there. Bernie Sanders is all there and speaks in coherent, precise policy. He speaks very precisely. He's 100% there, both physically and mentally. It is literally night and day listening to a Bernie Sanders speech. The simulacra asking the real questions. How is the golf game, though? Probably not great, so don't know if we can put him in for president.
For everybody, but there are very honest and serious and rigorous conversations taking place at every level of our party because it is a political party and we have differences of point of view. I mean, if you compare that to the non-existent dialogue and conversation that took place in the Republican Party after Donald Trump's criminal conviction on 34 counts, it's remarkable.
Jamie Raskin here makes a great point because here he is openly discussing the issue with Joe Biden, as a lot of Democrats on Thursday night and into Friday and into the weekend did, and acknowledging that Republicans are not doing the same when it comes to Donald Trump. Now, part of that is obvious. The Republican base is the Trump base.
Right, that's it. Full stop. Personally, I would ban anyone who plays golf from holding office. I'd second that.
If they don't care about Trump's convictions, if they don't care that he is a criminal, then party leadership, the party generally, the politicians, Republican politicians, are not going to care either. The issue with Joe Biden is that voters do care about Joe Biden's performance. Democratic voters care. Independent voters care. The voters that Joe Biden needs to come out to vote on election day, they're worried. So that's why it becomes a greater issue here. But it's also just, I think, because the Democratic Party is such a larger tent in terms of the ability for them to reach out to a wider swath of voters. I mean, that's the reason why when turnout is high, Democrats win. It's because there is a greater ability for Democrats to reach out to more people. Whereas the GOP base tends to be, we're talking like 90% white. It is very concentrated, but they are reliable voters. Whereas Democratic voters tend to vote for people that inspire them. But
a larger tent they'll kick you out of if you want better than capitalism.
This gets to the other discussion here. So
what does that mean? It means that everything gets decided by the international Zionist lobby and not people. But that's not just the AIPAC, right? There's so many special interests that influence government, regardless of who's in power. What does that mean? You do realize that if Trump wins, the lobby groups, the special interests like AIPAC, like the big pharma special interest, the military industrial, these people always put their pressure on if Trump wins or if Biden wins. So I'm not sure why specifically. I don't know what that means. It means that everything gets decided by the international Zionist lobby and not people.
So this was Morning Joe on Friday morning, discussing the debate.
He couldn't finish a thought. He couldn't land an answer. And his closing thoughts were even botched. I mean, come on. There are people who are going, what the hell is going on? It's a fair question.
Yeah. Biden hasn't been listening to AIPAC recently. I can assure you that he has. What part of what part of the Israeli government lobby do you think he's not listening to? Nobody who isn't approved by the donor class gets to run. We have no representation.
Given that it's not just a bad night. It's one of the most important nights of this election cycle. And he was terrible. So how do people move forward and get a sense that he's going to be okay, that it was just a bad night? What needs to happen?
It's not just a bad night.
Mika Brzezinski there is so angry that she is throwing her pen on the table. Compare that to Monday morning, where it was a very different tune.
On Friday's show, I should clarify, Joe said it may be time for Biden to consider stepping aside. He also said we should wait a few days to see how he responds. We're shoulder to shoulder on that. I do agree. Joe Biden has work to do. He has to do better. His team has to do a lot better. I'm just not ready, though, to count Joe Biden out. Not even close. I think in the days and weeks ahead, as we move away from this debate, clarity will hopefully set in. For me, Joe Biden is still the man for this moment.
AIPAC is telling him to let Israel get into Rafah and he withdrew weapons, which is why they back Trump now. What are you talking about? That's literally not a thing that's happening. Do you think that weapons have stopped going to Israel? Oh, she threw her pen. It's so Jover. It's Jover. You think people can push Biden to step down? Because I don't mind that. No, I don't think he's. I think some people may have tried. I think some people may have. Some people may have tried, but no, Biden's not going to step down. I don't know. Weapons did not stop going into Israel. That's literally false. That's literally false. Biden provided zero resistance to Israel. Correct. He made some strong concerns. Okay, he was very worried. He was strongly concerned. But that's about as far as it went.
How different could that have possibly been? The tone just completely 180. And that statement on Monday, it's a longer statement. She also, to be fair, in the middle of that, does a really good takedown of Trump. But we've seen those a million times. Like, the point here is that there was such a different tone in terms of Joe Biden as the candidate, and if he should still be the candidate. On Friday, they're openly questioning that. They're criticizing how terrible Biden appeared. And on Monday, Mika Brzezinski reading out a statement off a teleprompter, which the show doesn't normally do. They'll do it for news, but not usually for their opinions. Reading out a teleprompter statement about how important it is to, support Joe Biden, how she still supports Joe Biden. Just a complete shift. And
welcome, Coherent Screams.
It's basically what I expected. Like it's very easy to get lost in the moment with these, sorts of events. But as the days passed, and this applies to a lot of politics, people wait it out, and things go away, and they blow over, and you get back to square one. That appears to be the case here, and it's bolstered by the fact that Joe Biden's family.
Yeah, so like here's a question. What happens if we see another performance like this in September, 2 months before the election? Okay? What happens if we see this performance in September in the next debate? 2 months before the election.
Is full on supporting him. So this is a piece from Politico from Monday morning. Biden's family privately criticizes top advisors and pushes for their ouster at Camp David meeting. So forget about maybe talking to Grandpa and, hey, Grandpa, maybe it's time to step aside. Time to let someone else in here. It's no. Not only is it not your fault, but we should be firing people on your campaign because it's their fault, as opposed to you and your own performance. So just to scroll down. So they privately trashed his top campaign advisors at Camp David this weekend, blaming them for the president's flop in Thursday's debate and urging Biden to fire or demote people in his political high command. These people said that the Biden family wanted the president to continue in the campaign rather than end his career with a calamitous debate performance against Trump, whom they all loathe. First Lady Jill Biden and his son Hunter were the loudest voices urging the president to stay in the contest.
That's so irresponsible. That is so irresponsible. Man, this is just wild. Can you fire enough people to save Biden's campaign? I don't know. We're what, 4 months out? We're about 4 months out. I don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah, I just need to fire one Biden, and 4 months before the election. This is wild. This is so wild.
That the world needs to pressure, to put pressure on Joe Biden to step aside are the two people that are instead.
Like, let's play that scenario out. Like, let's say if Joe Biden steps down now, like, man, would it even matter? I know for a fact that bad things will happen with Trump in office. That's true. That's not in dispute. That's 100%. Real Radham, welcome. America's effed and with it the world. Progressive have been screaming for this for months. Right, and it's literally too late. Like, if you keep Biden in, you know, it's a disaster. If you change him, I mean, I guess you'd have a slightly better chance. You'd have a slightly better chance, although, like, man, you got 4 months to make it happen.
Encouraging him to continue on. If they are so worried about Trump, as they should be, then they should know this isn't the way to beat him. This is the riskiest choice for Democrats.
Right. At this point, like, there's no doubt about it.
You know, if people hope to replace Biden, it requires Biden to step aside. That is, you can't really work around him at the convention. He has to decide that it's time to go. Now, this is the new ad they have put out. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments.
Did you see Trump last night? I mean it sincerely. The most lies told in a single debate. He lied about the great economy he created. He lied about the pandemic he botched. And then, his biggest lie, he lied about how he had nothing to do with the insurrection of January 6th. We all saw with our own eyes.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you.
We saw police being attacked, the Capitol being ransacked. He did not a single thing to stop it, nothing. Folks.
This was from the rally after the fact. Like,
I know I'm not a young man, but I know how to do this job. I know right from wrong. I know how to tell the truth.
Wait, if you know right from wrong, then, like, I presume, like, I presume the slaughter of tens of thousands would be wrong, right? Because if you can't consider that wrong, then it sounds like you actually don't know right from wrong.
I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
You can't always plan when you'll need a gun.
Ah!
Rational gun owners carry not because it's a weapon, but because it's a shield.
Man, that is the most American ad I have seen.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
All right, so I will continue to question how important debate ads really are.
Campaign ads. D. Salesman, nice majority report backdrop. Yep. Thank you.
Especially in this case, when it's the president, people already have formed opinions on both Biden and Trump. It's not like there's a new candidate out there trying to get their ideas across or their message across. People know who these two candidates are. But in terms of a campaign ad, I think this was pretty solid because it refocuses on where the campaign wants to focus on Trump and the threat of Trump, and also is able to showcase here that Joe Biden has some energy sometimes. This portion was shot, the Joe Biden portion was shot.
Right, but that's the problem, right? Like the picture then we're being painted is like, well, Joe Biden's with us sometimes. That's not that's not inspiring a whole lot of confidence.
The day after the debate, clearly between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m.
Yeah.
So he had some energy, and it's important for the campaign itself to showcase that. Now, again, will this have any impact? People are so, already stuck in who they support. The issue here is, can Democrats reach people that they need to come out to vote? Young people especially. I don't know if a television ad is really going to accomplish that. Now, maybe it appears on Twitch and YouTube. Still, I don't know the importance of an ad like this. Young people are more concerned about actual issues and human rights. And that's where Biden over the past year has lost a lot of support. Is his ongoing endorsement and support of Netanyahu and the far right-wing Israeli government. Now, this is the most recent poll I've seen on this from CBS News and YouGov, taken June 28th to 29th. Have mental and cognitive health to serve as president? 50% say Trump does. Only 27% say Biden does. So 72% say Biden does not. 49% say Trump does not. This gets to, I think, as well, just Democratic voters are more willing to be introspective, are more willing to acknowledge reality. This is the result you get. Whereas, the entire MAGA base, of course, thinks Trump is God himself. So he's going to have a higher support here. But the Biden campaign trying to combat this. So the day after the debate, they released a list of talking points for fans. So in emails to Democratic supporters, now, look, people were laughing at this, and I think it's fine to laugh at this, as I am laughing at this. But I do think this is smart of the campaign to do. Like, just give some quick point-by-point breakdown of how to vouch for Joe Biden. So expanded healthcare to millions of families, lowered the price of insulin, created more jobs than any president in history, vaccinated the country, took the largest climate action in the history of the world, canceled student loans for nearly 5 million people, rallied the world in support of Ukraine and expanded NATO, passed the largest national funding for passenger rail since the founding of Amtrak, and it just goes on and on and on and on. I don't know what this is. Oh, okay.
Police departments funding, I guess. It's called damage control. Largest climate action, incredibly vague way of obscuring actual accomplishments. What is wrong with his PR team? Well, because they would actually have to articulate what the what said climate action is, and it's not a lot. It's there, but yeah.
I think that's just a mistake. That's supposed to be part of this. I assume this is a Mediaite typo and not and not a campaign email typo. But, this would be a reason maybe... no, this is good. This is good. I thought I was talking about investing more money into that, which would be a problem.
He did, by the way.
Largely good, that there have been things that Biden has done, especially as it applies to labor rights. And it isn't really Joe Biden. It is more so the people that he is, with his team, decided to put in those positions. But the NLRB has been stronger than ever under Joe Biden. And that, I think, has been sort of lost, again, since October, because of the human rights atrocities taking place that Biden is supporting. But a lot of this stuff, it may be important to people and is worth noting if, you're a Democratic operative or, I guess, supporter and want to talk to your family about this stuff that are maybe a little not so enthused about Joe Biden for obvious reasons. But it appears the campaign is going to continue. Like, he's not stepping aside. His family wants him to continue. He's going to continue. Even though donors also, I've read some other information about this, donors are apparently worried, and some of them calling to get their money back. That may be the one thing that pushes this over is if, the donors completely fall out from under him. But even in that, money is less of a problem, or I should say money means less in a presidential race, because people already know you got two choices and there's billions in free media about the two choices, just in the coverage of these campaigns. So getting your name out there isn't really important when it comes to running for president, because your name is going to be out there regardless. But even still, that's what Democrats tend to be worried most about is money, resources, support from insiders. If that completely falls out, then there could be changes. But seeing how this is already beginning to blow over, I really don't think anything will change. This will continue to be the candidate, and Democrats have to figure out a way to ensure that they can avoid a second Trump presidency.
Oh, man. The billions in free media is calling Biden senile, though. Senile now, though. Right, but they're also, like, it's amazing. Like, they were saying that Biden should step down and yada, 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 and now they're saying, like, oh, well, actually, he's still got our support. That's looking impossible at the moment. Cheer up, folks, because it's going to get worse before it gets worse. Divided Supreme Court rules in major homelessness case that outdoor sleeping bans are okay. That's right. So now we're criminalizing homelessness. The Supreme Court cleared the way for cities to enforce bans on homeless people sleeping outside in public places on Friday, overturning a ruling from a California-based appeals court that found such laws amount to cruel and unusual punishment when shelter space is lacking. The case is the High Court's most significant ruling on the issue in decades, and comes as a rising number of people in the U.S. are without a permanent place to live. Nice. In a 6-3 decision along ideological lines, the 9 magical law wizards have found that apparently it's quite easy, or quite acceptable, I should say, to criminalize you not having a home. Outdoor sleeping bans don't violate the 8th Amendment. Western cities have argued that the rulings made it harder to manage outdoor encampments in public spaces, but homeless advocates said punishing people who need a place to sleep would criminalize homelessness. That's literally what's happening here. In California, which is home to 1/3 of the country's homeless population, Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom said the decision gives state and local officials the authority to clear unsafe encampments from the streets while acting with compassion. I'm sure that's what's happening. The decision removes the legal ambiguities that have tied their hands for local officials for years. Justice Neil Gorsuch acknowledged those concerns in the opinion he wrote for the majority. Homelessness is complex. Its causes are many, so may be the public policy response required to address it. No, it's actually quite simple. There's a problem. People don't have housing. Solve it. Give people housing. It's literally just that. Instead of like putting all this effort and resources to criminalize homelessness, why don't you just like, I don't know, put that effort and resource into like making sure people have roofs over their heads? Quote, a handful of federal judges cannot begin to match the collective wisdom of the American people possess in deciding how best to handle a pressing social question like homelessness. You give people housing, you give people a roof over their head. He suggested that people who have no choice but to sleep outdoors could raise that as a necessity defense if they are ticketed or otherwise punished for violating a camping ban. Yeah, like these people aren't there to camp for the weekend, okay? Like literally they have no choice. Imagine if we criminalized buying a home without plans to live in it. Way better policy. Well, yeah. That's something that needs to happen regardless, right? Yeah, but if we throw them in jail, they can produce commodities for 25 cents an hour. True. Homeless advocates, on the other hand, said that allowing cities to punish people who have no other place to sleep would ultimately make the crisis worse. Yeah, no kidding. Cities have been allowed to regulate encampments under a U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling, but couldn't completely bar people from sleeping outdoors. Sleep is a biological necessity, not a crime, said Justice Sotomayor, reading from the bench. A dissent joined by her liberal colleagues. Homelessness is a reality for so many Americans. Punishing poor people for something they can't control, like homelessness, is cruel and unusual, she said. She warned that striking down the Eighth Amendment arguments against camping bans likely won't end the fights over the ordinances in court. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, a Democrat, criticized the majority ruling, saying cities shouldn't attempt to arrest their way out of this problem or hide the homelessness crisis in neighboring cities or in jail. The only way to truly address it is to connect people with housing and services. The case came from the rural Oregon town of Grants Pass, which appealed a ruling striking down local ordinances that fined people $295 for sleeping outside after tents began crowding public parks. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which have jurisdiction over the 9 western states, have held since 2018 that such bans violate the Eighth Amendment in areas where there aren't enough shelter beds. Grants Pass Mayor Sarah Bristol told the AP that the city will not immediately start enforcing those local ordinances fining people for sleeping outside, and that the city council will need to review the decision and determine the next steps. Quote, this lawsuit was about whether cities have a right to enforce camping restrictions in public spaces, and I'm relieved that Grants Pass will be able to reclaim our city's parks for recreation, said Bristol, who serves in a nonpartisan position. Homelessness is a complex issue, and our community has been trying to find solutions. No, again, it's really simple. No house. Give them house. It's literally that simple. Attorney Thean Evangelist, who represented Grants Pass before the High Court, applauded the ruling, saying the Ninth Circuit Court has tied the hands of local governments. Years from now, I hope that we will look back on today's watershed ruling as the turning point in America's homelessness crisis. It's so simple. It really is. It really is. Just divert your resources to actually solving the root of the problem. The root of the problem is that these people don't have homes. And by the way, ALAP. True. In Portland, meanwhile, spokesperson for the mayor's office said the effect of the ruling would likely be muted since the state has separate legal limits on how cities can manage encampments. Seattle officials expect a limited impact. An attorney for homeless people who live in Grants Pass bemoaned the decision. Quote, "We are disappointed that a majority of the court has decided that our constitution allows the city to punish its homeless residents simply for sleeping outside with a blanket to survive the cold when there is nowhere else to go," said Ed Johnson, director of litigation at the Oregon Law Center. Friday's ruling comes after homelessness in the U.S. grew a dramatic 12% last year to its highest reported level, as soaring rents and declining coronavirus pandemic assistance combined to put housing out of reach for more people. Yes, all landlords are parasites. For more than 650,000 people are estimated to be homeless, most since the country began using a yearly point-in-time survey in 2007. A lack of access to mental health, addiction resources can contribute to the crisis. Older adults, LGBTQ+ people, and people of color are disproportionately affected by homelessness, advocates say. Nearly half of people without housing sleep outside, said federal data shows. Derek Belgard, executive director for nonprofit Chief Seattle Club, said some people may simply choose to sleep outside. Before his organization was started, members of the local Native American community weren't using shelters because they didn't feel safe in them or felt as though they belonged. Quote, "I think it's going to cause a lot of pain and a lot of misery to deny people the right to safety, to feel safe, to feel a sense of belonging. It's going to be devastating for a lot of people," said Belgrade, a member of the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians. The Ninth Court decision had governed 9 states: Alaska, Arizona, California, Hawaii, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington. Yes, they don't want a house with rules because they can't use drugs in them. Yeah, go fuck yourself. Why were you banned in Tina's channel? Like, I don't even know what the point is. You know, like, I don't even know what the point is in appearing in other channels to attempt to troll. Makes no sense. Can't debate? True. The next disastrous ruling that the Supreme Court put down was the overturning of Chevron. Things have been tried before, and it turns out if you give people stable housing, it helps them fight their addictions. True. Reason why you were banned from Tina? Can't debate. No, I think it was something else. I think it was something else. How the Supreme Court's blockbuster Chevron ruling puts countless of regulations in jeopardy. Yeah, a lot of it's bad, folks. A major Supreme Court ruling on Friday also that shifted power from the executive branch to the judiciary stands to transform how the federal government works. By overturning the 1984 precedent, the court's conservative majority has made countless regulations vulnerable to legal challenge. The types of executive branch moves that the ruling jeopardizes include a plan to put Wi-Fi on school buses, a new ban on non-compete clauses, healthcare coverage rules being implemented through Obamacare, and the latest plan to forgive student loan debt. The Supreme Court ruling could boost efforts by conservatives who have taken aim at the Biden Environmental Protection Agency's rules limiting planet-warming pollution from vehicles, oil and gas wells, and pipelines and power plants. Quote, "There's no substantive area that this doctrine does not touch," said Kent Barnett, a University of Georgia School of Law professor who specializes in administrative law. The so-called Chevron doctrine, named after the case Chevron versus Natural Resources Defense Council, told courts to defer to an agency's interpretation of a statute in circumstances in which the law in question is vaguely written. The precedent is deeply entrenched in administrative law, with Republican and Democratic administrations alike using it to shield regulatory action from legal attack. Quote, "Essentially, any time where an agency has a dispute with either an individual or some other entity, sometimes even the federal government versus the state government, Chevron deference could come up, said Thomas Berry, legal fellow at the Cato Institute. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the opinion overruling the precedent, writing for an ideologically split 6-3 court that courts must exercise their independent judgment in deciding whether an agency has acted within its statutory authority. Man, this is so bad. The Supreme Court is cooked, bro. Just gotta toss the whole thing out at this point. Yeah, I'm leaning towards agreeing with you. I'm leaning towards agreeing. This is just disastrous. Cato is garbage. Yes, the Cato Institute. I am leaning towards agreeing. Like, just these people were not elected. These people have no ethical code to which we can hold them account to. The Supreme Court has been mostly awful for its entire existence. Man, that's not assuring. Even more of a reason then. What can the liberals on the court do to subvert their own minority? Is filibustering a thing? Can they try to postpone these? Nah, they can't. They literally can't really do much. They literally can't do much. As a 3 justice minority. Assuming the institution is capped, the institution of the Supreme Court is capped, the only viable option would be to pack the courts, right? Would be to expand the Supreme Court. But, like, how do you do that? Okay? How do you do that? And what is the willingness of the Democratic Party to get that done? Right, a lot more decisions like Plessy than Brown. They don't have the votes, need filibuster-proof majorities in the Senate. Right, they would need a majority, a filibuster-proof majority, which is 60 votes in the Senate. They would need the House. They would need the presidency. And they would need the willingness to do that. Right, luckily after the Supreme Court just ruled, the president can send SEAL Team 6 after them, call it an official act, and get away with it. The Roberts Court has been chipping away at the precedent for over the years, but in the case before the justices this term, 2 lawsuits challenging the regulations requiring that fishermen pay environmental monitors that they're required to carry on their boats, the High Court dealt the final blow. The ruling has injected legal uncertainty into regulations of all types, including those of technology, labor, the environment, and healthcare. Cool. There are so many highly complex scientific policy decisions that would be nearly impossible for Congress to draft legislation with enough detail to account for every regulatory scenario, the legal scholars argue. Roberts said the new opinion should not be used to upend previous cases upholding regulations absent a special justification. I think they'd really just need a majority. The filibuster isn't anything constitutional, just a rule that can be changed or removed with a simple majority. That's true. That's true. I stand corrected. Yep. Technically, they don't. They just need the determination to do what needs to be done. Would be funny if Biden did send Meal Team 6 after Trump. But Justice Elena Kagan, in a dissent joined by the court's two other liberals, questioned whether that threshold would really constrain the ruling's reach, given the possibility of new lawsuits against regulations that went unchallenged because of the protections of Chevron, as well as the ability of lower courts to find a special justification in almost any circumstance. For now, opponents of regulations are constrained by a 6-year statute of limitations for challenging executive branch actions under the relevant law, but the Supreme Court has yet to decide a case heard this term that might gut that limitation. That decision is expected Monday. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Here's a partial look at what could be affected by the new ruling. Consumer safeguards. That's nice. Agencies charged with consumer protection, such as the CFPB, the FTC, often face opposition from financial service firms and other private sector companies, which may claim that new rules constrain their ability to compete or cost them too much. No, they're actually not interested in competition. They're interested in consolidation. Think of issues like what show up on credit reports, on your credit report, what fees banks and other consumer service providers can charge, how lenders make credit decisions, and rules governing the protection of consumers from scams and fraud. Lawsuits that block those regulations could be costly for consumers, advocates say. Adam Rust, the director of financial services at Consumer Federation of America, pointed to a recent ruling in Texas in which a federal court paused the CFPB's new ruling, limiting credit card late fees. Like, imagine, man, Jesus Christ. Every day that rule remained stayed, consumers paid $27 million in late fees that they otherwise would not have had to pay if the rule were in place. Giving the power to the judicial branch to interpret how agencies can apply consumer laws when there are statutory ambiguities will hurt consumers and rubber stamp the political aims of activist judges. Rust said, adding that it will also limit the ability of consumer advocates to weigh in on regulatory policy. Quote, I can't get a meeting with the Supreme Court, but I can get a meeting with the CFPBs, Rust said, referring to public comments solicited by the agency while regulations are crafted. I don't think many in the public are up to writing an amicus brief. There's absolutely no reason the president needs any sort of immunity. Is there a reason why they can't do their job without breaking the law? Yeah, we'll get into that one. Proposed employer rules and employee rights may be more constrained. Overtime pay, benefits, workplace retirement plans, the minimum wage, independent contractor and employee rights to unionize are just some of the critical workplace issues for which guardrails set by agencies charged with enforcing workplace laws may be contested more vociferously than they are already now. The decision may immediately affect a hot-button issue raised this year by the FTC, banning non-compete clauses in employer contracts, a regulation that agency said could benefit 1 in 5 workers but is being challenged by business groups. Quote, the non-compete case is among the most vulnerable, along with many Securities and Exchange Commission cases, said Andrew Schwartzman, senior counselor at the Benton Institute for Broadband and Society. Colstar, thank you for the follow. Thank you. When it comes to regulatory agencies like the Department of Labor, the NLRB, and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, they will no longer be given an automatic advantage when a case is brought challenging how they choose to interpret a law. Quote, what this decision changes is that the agency no longer gets a boost when it comes to court. If a case was like a race, the agency often starts with a few legs ahead. Today it starts at the same line as the challenger, said Alexander McDonald, a partner and the member of the Workplace Policy Institute at Littler, a law firm representing employers. Nothing about today's decision means the agency loses. It just means the challenger has an equal opportunity to put forth its interpretation of the law. When it comes to supporting and upholding workers' rights and protections, the ruling on its face may not signal the courts would necessarily disadvantage federal agencies, said Sharon Block, a Harvard Law School professor and executive director of the Center for Labor and a Just Economy. But practically speaking, if a court or particular judge is hostile to a given issue, that may tip the scales against them. Right, and like since judges can be easily bought and swayed, and or rather, federal judges can be appointed by the party in power. That kind of skews the whole thing. The ruling says courts may be informed by the agency's interpretation. That also means they may not. It's up to them. The least democratic part of the government will determine what kind of protections the American people have. Congress has entrusted to the agencies. With this ruling, she said, the Supreme Court has sent an engraved invitation to aggressive challenges to anything these agencies do. Potential weakening of patient and consumer health care protections. Nice. Friday's ruling could open the door to legal challenges to the decision made by the government's public health agencies, the American Cancer Society, and other health associations, warning in a friend of the court brief that the reversal of Chevron could unleash a litigation tsunami even on long-settled policy. If you have the means, do you recommend moving out of the country? I suppose if you want to, and you can. The USDA and the Department of Health and Human Services, through its centers for Medicare and Medicaid services, rely heavily on the flexibility that Chevron deference provides to manage a highly detailed and sometimes unavoidably complex regulatory process. On Medicaid alone, the law is what one federal judge famously described as almost unintelligible to the uninitiated. The laws created to allow these health agencies the authority to regulate the country's complex health sector were written in a purposely ambiguous way, legal scholars say. Ambiguity is necessary to give the agencies the flexibility to use their technical and scientific expertise to make the countless real-world policy decisions that make up the regulatory foundation of programs that directly affect the health of nearly every American. The multitude of health and services department regulations that govern the Affordable Care Act, exchanges, Medicare, Medicaid, insurance coverage, and more could now be more easily challenged in court. Several regulations, including those involving the Affordable Care Act's federal premium tax credits, annual out-of-pocket limits, the adequacy of in-network doctor options, and preventative health services at no cost to patients, could be subject to litigation by those seeking to challenge the agency's interpretation of congressional statutes, according to the KFF, a nonprofit health policy research and polling organization. In addition, challengers could have more chance of success in lawsuits against HHS regulations issued by the Biden administration that ban healthcare providers and insurers from discriminating based on gender identity and sexual orientation, and that interpret the health insurance, or HIPAA, as prohibiting the disclosure of information on reproductive health care, including abortion, said Andrew, and I'm not even going to try, director of O'Neill Institute of National and Global Health Law at Georgetown University. Quote, it really moves away from the understanding that we have a robust scientific community that protects our health, said Twin Amatsiko said, we'll have everybody coming in and second-guessing what these agencies are doing and thereby creating this chaos and lack of trust in the system. Other programs that could be in jeopardy include the FDA's fast-track approval process, which the agency has sole discretion over which drugs or devices qualify for expedited approval. Some scholars say the FDA approval process as a whole could be undermined by Chevron's reversal. Drugs and devices are approved by the FDA based on evidence that companies submit from what the law calls adequate and well-controlled investigations. However, the definition of such an investigation is left up to the FDA interpretation. Challenges to tech regulations such as new net neutrality rules. The end of Chevron could complicate the U.S. government's effort to regulate data brokers, social media platforms, generative AI, cryptocurrency, and more as agencies scramble to interpret their congressional mandates to fit these new challenges. Shifting regulatory power from agencies to courts give well-resourced companies with armies of lawyers even more powerful to fend off regulations they view harmful. Congress rarely gets anything done on tech, so agencies do most of the regulatory work, said Paul Galat, a policy analyst at the market research firm TD Cowen. But if the court reduces their rulemaking power, it would be particularly helpful in protecting the major tech platforms against new regulations that currently appear likely if Biden is reelected. Your president will speak on the Supreme Court ruling in about 45 minutes to the nation. Yeah, well, maybe I want. Well, it's kind of late for Biden, right? I wonder what Biden will come out. You know, unless he's threatening to expand the court, like it would be just basically words, you know. Unless Biden is going to get up there and unironically threaten to expand the courts, then like it really is just like it is really just like words. It would mean like anything other than that means nothing. Like saying that he's concerned, saying that, oh, what the Supreme Court did is terrible, like whatever. The zombie with the nuclear codes? Yes. In the telecom sector, Chevron has been a major reason the Federal Communication, or the FCC, is recognized as having power to regulate and deregulate internet service providers. Using that authority, the agency voted in April to restore net neutrality rules for ISPs, prohibiting them from blocking or slowing down websites, a move that instantly triggered industry lawsuits. Major questions doctrine is the next big regulatory legal fight. In some ways, the court's decision overturning Chevron simply makes official what has already been reality in practice, other legal experts say. For quite some time, Chevron has been a dead letter for several reasons, said David Vladeck, a Georgetown University law professor and former director of the FTC's Consumer Protection Bureau. By and large, Chevron is no longer cited, let alone relied on in lower courts. Faced with a hostile Supreme Court, the EPA has relied on Chevron less and less in recent years. Still, the end of the precedent takes another tool out of the agency's legal toolbox. For instance, the Supreme Court in 2014 cited Chevron to uphold a version of the EPA's so-called Good Neighbor Rule, which addresses a problem of air pollution that travels across state lines. The Supreme Court put in the latest iteration of the regulation on hold last week after a lower court, in the decision that did not cite Chevron, said the new pollution rules could be implemented. Overturning Chevron could also theoretically hamstring a future Republican administration trying to implement its own rules. Chevron's reversal doesn't eliminate agency authority, it shifts the burden on how you interpret the statute, said Ann Carlson, a former acting administrator of National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and an environmental law professor at University of California, Los Angeles. In her view, the major questions doctrine, which agencies can't regulate things of major economic or political significance if Congress hasn't given explicit authority to do so, is what to watch. Major questions is if used often and effectively to attack the EPA and other agencies, could render them useless because it argues they cannot operate without Congress passing laws explicitly giving them approval to do things. Carlson and other environmental law experts said, given extreme political polarization, things often move at a glacial pace in Congress. Whether the Supreme Court is overturning Chevron or reviving major questions, David Doniger, a senior federal strategist at Natural Resource Defense Council, told CNN their goal is enfeebling the federal government. Correct. All right, folks, we've got we've got a couple of headlines to go through. So we'll just speed run through this one. DOJ is writing criminal charge against Boeing for prior deadly 737 MAX crashes. We'll see if anything goes through. If anything comes out of it, and if it does, we'll keep up with it. Folks, this is important to pay attention to. Abortion right amendments qualify for the ballot in Nevada. If you live in Nevada, pay attention, folks. Or if you know somebody that lives in Nevada, pay attention. Officials in Nevada have formally certified a proposed amendment that would enshrine abortion access in the state's constitution to appear on the November ballot. The move was announced Friday by organizers behind the ballot measure, as well as Nevada's Secretary of State's office. It makes Nevada the sixth state to put the issue on abortion rights directly before the voters in this year's election. Pay attention, folks, if you live in Nevada or know somebody This is incredibly important. Quote, the support this initiative has received from Nevadans throughout the signature collection process shows that what we've known to be true. Nevadans believe that healthcare decisions about abortion are best left to women, the doctors, and those they love and trust, not politicians. Said Lindsay Harman, the president of Nevadans for Reproductive Freedom, the group behind the effort. In May, the group announced it had collected 200,000 signatures of registered voters, far more than the 103,000 it needed to move forward the process of qualifying its proposal for the ballot. The Nevada Secretary of State's office said Friday it had verified those signatures and concluded all requirements have been met for the amendment to appear in November. In Nevada, abortion is already legal until the 24th week of pregnancy, but fearing that such rights could be undone in the future, reproductive rights advocates have sought to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot that would enshrine similar language protecting abortion rights up until fetal viability to make it close to impossible for lawmakers to ever eliminate the protections. So yeah, pay attention, folks. November, if you live in the state of Nevada or know somebody there, this is incredibly important. These ballot initiatives are one of the few tools where you can directly influence what happens. So definitely vote for this amendment and advocate for people to vote for it as well if you can. It is incredibly important. All right, folks. The last Supreme Court decision. Trump and immunity, what the Supreme Court ruling means. The Supreme Court voting 6-3 along ideological lines gave Donald Trump a partial victory in determining that he is immune from criminal charges for some actions while taken while he is president. The issue, the justice said, isn't as simple as whether Trump enjoyed a legal shield when prosecutors say he illegally tried to overturn the 2020 presidential election he lost. The question, they said, was whether in committing his alleged crimes he was conducting official business as president, in which case he is immune, or acting as a private citizen, in which case he is not. The Supreme Court kicked this case back to a lower court to sort that out. Right, so basically, the problem being is that they don't define what conducting official business is. The court told Tanya Chutkan, the U.S. District Judge overseeing the federal election case against Trump, she essentially has to go through much of the conduct alleged in the indictment and determine whether the act was official business or not. The indictment against Trump, brought by special counsel Jack Smith, does not make a distinction between private and official acts. Trump's attorney, John Sauer, acknowledged during the April Supreme Court arguments that some alleged actions cited in the indictment sound like private business and could be prosecuted. It is highly unlikely the case will go to trial, much less wrap up before the election day, November 5th, so that voters are informed by the outcome. Previously, Chutkan indicated that she would give the two sides 3 months to prepare for a trial that could last 2 to 3 months. If Trump wins re-election and is sworn in president before the case reaches a verdict, he could order his attorney general to file a court of motion to dismiss the prosecution. An additional blow to the prosecution, the court said Smith couldn't use evidence of Trump's official acts in making his case. The case is one of the three prosecutions still hanging over Trump. None of them are likely to be resolved before the presidential election. He was convicted in New York in May of 34 felony counts over the hush money payments. Yada, yada, yada. So, what are private acts? In the majority opinion, the Supreme Court said Trump is immune from prosecution over his interactions with the Justice Department to allegedly pressure states to replace in the majority opinion, the Supreme Court said that Trump is immune from prosecution over his interactions with the Justice Department to allegedly pressure states to replace legitimate electors with fraudulent Trump electors, and his threat to replace his acting attorney general, who wouldn't tell states that the department was investigating election fraud. The court said those actions fall under presidential constitutional authority. That is absurd. That is absurd. Take that in for a second. The court said that these actions would fall under the president's constitutional authority, apparently. So I guess the only natural conclusion that we can derive from this is that Biden should start calling the Democratic parties in the states, in the swing states, and make his own plan to shoehorn fake electors, because those actions are under the president's constitutional authority. That's what Biden should be doing then. Of course, he won't, because he has no spine. SCOTUS says POTUS can dictate the results of an election, so Biden wins 2024 then. Right. According to this logic, yes. The lower court is to determine the nature of a host of other allegations in the indictment, including Trump's effort to enlist Vice President Mike Pence to alter the election results he was certifying on January 6th, when insurrectionists disrupted the proceedings with an assault on the U.S. Capitol. Yeah, so essentially, the president can effectively do anything that he wants as long as it's considered official business, whatever that means, because that wasn't really specified. Man, the situation's pretty screwed. You have a feeble Democratic candidate, a Supreme Court handing down these kind of rulings. Man, it is a recipe for disaster. It is a recipe for disaster. Well, if I was Biden, I would declare Trump a threat to national security and a terrorist and lock us up right away. This ruling would give him the powers. Yeah, it will give you the power to do so. That's right. Just toss it up as official actions under the presidential authority or whatever, and that's it. You can't be prosecuted. Kyle Evans Scotus just says outright, F the Constitution, what we say goes around here. Yes, the nine law wizards of the realm have declared. Not gonna lie, folks, it's a pretty bleak setup. All right, folks, I got to get going. Thank you all for joining. I appreciate each and every one of you hanging out. Thank you, Heat. Thank you, Michael Hasser, for modding the chat. Folks, a couple of things before I go. Wednesday, the stream might be a shorter stream. Thursday is the holiday. So in lieu of a stream, we'll try to put a movie on about noon. So early afternoon. Early afternoon. I'm thinking what more appropriate of a movie to put than Don't Look Up. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you check out the trailer. Definitely a very, very adequate, it's spot on movie about what is going on here. Canada's are pretty bad now too. I heard. Thank you very much. No, thank you for hanging out. I appreciate it. So if you want to join us on Thursday, make sure you hit the ! Discord. Join the Discord. French elections next week. Yeah, it's not. That looks pretty rough. That looks pretty rough too. Not gonna lie. That looks pretty rough, given the fact that like the liberals would literally be willing to ally themselves with the far right than to ally themselves with the left. But yeah, make sure you join the Discord if you want to join us for that. It would be early afternoon. I'm thinking about 12, literally 12 p.m. Eastern. If you want to join us, you can do that. Keep hitting the like button on the YouTube, folks. ! YT. I see you. I see you all. Thank you for hitting the like button on the YouTube. I appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't done so. Thank you, Michael Hassler. Thank you, Heat, for modding. We'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. See ya. Alright, folks, hang tight. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.